What's up? Welcome to Late Night. In the Earlverse. I hope you guys are doing well. I know it's a little late on a Monday night, but I thought that I'd pop in. What up, Doom? The preeminent clipper in the business. It's a like a race between you, my lost interest, Stalin 19, and that's about all I know. But I enjoy your work, especially how you put your logo always in a interesting part of whatever you are clipping. So to assure you won't clip me tonight or any other night, let's talk AEW wrestling. Fuck yeah. Because who the hell wants to hear that? Hit the like button, 100%. Now I do it on purpose. What can I say, Doom? I'm a wrestling fan. Always have been. Always will be. It's like a soap opera for dudes. You know, a lot of people ask me why I like wrestling so much. It's just a nice way to forget about the real problems of the world for 2 seconds and just be animated and suspended in a state of disbelief. Like this Saturday, there's an AEW pay-per-view. Well, here's the thing, Doom, with the Dabbleverse. I understand why it's popular. And it is very pro wrestling like. You've got the bad guys, you know. There's not a lot of good guys, to be honest with you. It's pretty much all bad guys. Um, you know, you've got Chad and Steel Toe and Kevin and Shuley and Levy and then you've got the provocateurs like Carlos Danger and whatnot. And I don't know. I'm just not interested in any of the subjects. So that's why I take a hit in terms of the numbers and whatnot, because I just don't want to talk about it. Just not interested in Steel Toe's legal problems. And, you know, there's in Melton, I forgot to add him. And then you've got the guys who kind of come in and come out, you know, the Quad Father. And, you know, don't get me wrong. When I say I don't talk about it in here, I don't, but I still watch a lot of the stuff. I don't watch as much as I used to because it's just the same shit every day. I mean, I'm sorry, but I just don't find April that interesting. You know, big deal. She cheated on her husband with, you know, someone else. Like, that's hardly like earth-breaking news. But I understand the roast-like nature of the Dabbleverse. I don't know. You'd think I'd be interested. Well, I mean, I been tempted at times to get involved because, I guess you would say I'm a roast comic. So you think this would be like right up my alley, and especially talking shit on your computer where there's really no blowback immediately, you know. But that's what I loved about roast battle when I first started doing it was you could talk shit, but also someone else is going to get to talk shit 10 seconds after you said it. So I like that combat, the live nature of, anyone could sit on their computer and look at a video and make fun of someone, but not many can make fun of someone and then you're going to be made fun of in front of a group ASAP. But I understand why it's popular. It's so repetitive. I mean, Stuttering John was like a gold mine for 3 or 4 people, but even with him, I was just like, I don't understand the appeal. I mean, this guy was on a successful show like 25 years ago. Like, there's got to be someone else a little more interesting. But, I guess there isn't. So, the internet's a big place. I'm trying to get the wrestling fans in here because wrestling fans, there's a lot of popular wrestling podcasts and whatnot. Um, so I'm trying to get those people in here and, talk, we can talk politics and shit too. Everyone loves talking politics. I don't care if people are, what side you're on. It's always a good time. And to me, it's such a fascinating field to talk about because no one's ever going to agree completely on anything in the political field. So it's going to have good debate. Chili boots. It is a coal business. Hollywood eats its own. I see it every night. I met a comic Saturday night at the Comedy Store. I think she had just moved here from like Idaho or something, and I could just tell, man, this girl's going to be eaten up alive. She was like, "Oh, this place is so cool." It's like, "I've got my first roast battle," and it's like no one gets excited about that show anymore. So you're a little late to the party. Uh, um, Earl, I hope he posted a clip of your cousin on his old show, and he talked about your grandpa George. Sounds like he was. I mean, I never met him. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash with his wife, so I never met my grandparents I think in the 50s in Oklahoma. I mean, my grandfather was a brilliant businessman at that time. I think I've told the story before, so I'll trim the fat. But my grandfather would basically drive by oil refineries and ask them for their waste, and they thought he was fucking crazy, so they just gave it to him. He didn't even have to buy it, really. I'm not sure if they ever caught on. And he turned it into like carbon and graphite. And, I started really looking around my house, and man, probably at least 60% of shit in my house is made from graphite. I mean, this microphone thing is graphite to some degree. And then my dad took over the company, and we could have been billionaires, to be honest with you. But as most of you know, or maybe none of you know, my dad went deep, sunk all his money into like an oil rigging proposition, I guess you'd say, in the Amazon, and it just didn't hit. And if it would have, we would have been like billionaires. I mean, literally billionaires, because my dad was really the only one to go into this particular portion of the Amazon. And, obviously it didn't hit, so maybe there was no one there for a reason. But, he took a shot. He took a shot. Yeah, that sounds like something my grandfather would do. What up, Dr. Chow? I mean, there's graphite in everything. Like, this computer desk is got graphite uh, beams on it holding up the glass. You can't see it, but the company was called Great Lakes Carbon, and then I think it was sold in the maybe the 90s. I'm not sure. Had a huge office in New York City. I remember going to a few times. Yeah, he was a big time Republican, no doubt about it. Um, and so and they had office out here in Torrance where they drilled for oil out here, and I flew on the company plane a few times. The Convair, I remember. It was amazing. It was like the first time I was ever on a plane that had like beds in it, and I'm like, man, this is the way to travel, not with the pores and coach. Um, but once the company was sold, all that shit was gone, gone, gone. No more private planes for Earl. But that's all right. I got to fly on it more than most people can say they've been on a private plane. So, I've lived a pretty cool life. I just wish that project in the Amazon would have paid off. I could just buy the Comedy Store and put me on the lineup every night. Hey, why is Earl on the lineup every night? It's all good. All good. Instead, I'm talking to 8 people. I'd probably still be doing this if I was a billionaire. Uh, I don't know why I have a Wikipedia or don't have one. I guess um, I don't have a website or a Wikipedia. John Lovitz did what? Um, uh, I mean, Instagram is I guess basically my pictorial Wikipedia. I rarely post on X anymore. Facebook I still have, but I'm pretty much just on Instagram and YouTube in terms of activity. Oh yeah, Lovitz did have a club. I played it a few times. The John Lovitz Comedy Club. It was a horrible location. It was on like the third floor um, of Universal City Walk, so you really had to know it was there. And it was at that City Walk in Universal City used to be pretty poppin', but then just I think with the advent of Netflix and stuff, just less people go out now. And YouTube. You guys are watching this right now instead of going to a movie or something. And then I think he had a pretty sweetheart deal of the first 2 or 3 years he didn't have to pay rent, but the club was horribly run. I think they had the ex-general manager of the Irvine Improv, and I remember walking in one night, and he was asleep in the booth. Like, "Oh, okay. That can't be a good sign." And it was before it was the John Lovitz Club, it was the BB King's, Blues Club, so it was built really for music. Now, if you've been to that club in Austin, the Vulcan Gas Company. It had a very similar layout to that where the seats. What up, Misha? It's 3 floors, but they were like stacked on top of each other. So if you were on the third floor, you literally had to look over the balcony to watch the show. So it was not a good venue for stand-up comedy. And they rarely had big names. And then I think like a year in, Lovitz pretty much abandoned playing there, and he's not really a stand-up anyway, to be frank. He's a comedy actor. Um, I think he got kind of the itch when he saw Rob Schneider making tons. Rob tours the fucking world and he sells out everywhere. Um, but he's Is wow. I mean, I every now and then I will do my friend Kyle's Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. He produces Mario Lopez's podcast, so it's right next door to the old Lovitz Club. I don't believe anything is in there. I mean, malls these days, at least in California, they struggle. I mean, I went there, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago on a Saturday night, and that used, like I said, it used to be a pretty poppin' mall, and my God, it was empty. Like there must have been under 100 people there, whereas, in its prime on a Saturday night, there were thousands. That's no joke. They still have a movie theater there, but I think a lot of people today go to movies at the Grove, which is it's kind of in between West Hollywood and Hollywood, and um, I mean Century City Mall. So um, I can't see any business going, hey, let's put a business here. I mean, maybe a music club, but you'd have to get big bands. I mean, it's a pretty nice sized venue. At least, it's funny. That's where I first met. Well, I first met Roddy Piper at the Comedy Store, but the first time I did a podcast with him was actually, I think it was in Lovitz's, like on the second or third floor. There was a podcast studio, and that's where I first started doing a podcast with him, with Steve Simone, Comedy Store legend. Um, so I mean that mall, I can't believe it's still in business. I mean, there's trying to think what's there. I mean, there's a Starbucks there that does okay because there's a lot of business offices around that complex. So I could see the Starbucks lasting. And then there's like a Dodger store, movie theater, and then you could walk into Universal Studios from there, so you get some cross traffic from that, but it's a pretty dead. Uh, well, no, I mean, there's really because um, you have to go to this place off of Ventura Boulevard, so it's not like there's houses there where people could walk by it. I mean, I think there's like a Skechers store, and there used to be a real happening restaurant there that people would go, and then they'd go to Universal Studios. I mean, I remember I went to the restaurant a few times and went to Universal Theater, which Kiss has played there. I think I was there to see Skid Row and someone. Um, but man, that area is a shell of itself now. I mean, the huge parking structure, it's usually 40, 50, 60% empty, even on a Friday or Saturday night. So, and then with this economy, people don't really go out much anymore. Netflix and chill, babies. So the outdoor mall is really, um, it's kind of a dying, they're dinosaurs. I mean, I just went tonight to the Century City Mall, and that's pretty happening mall still because they have great. What up, Ryan? They have great stores in there. They got a huge Apple store, probably one of the best Apple stores in LA. They've got the Breitling and Rolex stores and the Tag Heuer store. Um, a real nice All Saints. Of course, they have a real nice John Varvatos. We're just talking malls and shit, Ryan. Real nice. I mean, the last movie I went to was that movie theater in Century City. I went with someone who shall remain nameless to see Alien, which was actually in a movie theater. So I mean, that's probably the best mall going right now in LA. Of course, they're revitalizing and revamping the Beverly Center, which was the number one mall out here, and then it just went downhill. They're putting in a Lucky Strike bowling alley, which is a pseudo nightclub with bowling in it. They're putting in like a state of the art Gold's Gym. Colt C, welcome to Bonzo Berry. I appreciate the support. Well, I think in LA anyway, like the Beverly Center used to be really happening in the 80s because they had a killer movie theater in there. That was like the place to take your dates. They had this great place, was called on the top floor, Starkey's, which was a video game arcade, but they also had pizza and stuff. So if you were like a teenager looking to, like meet girls or whatever, you'd go to Starkey's and you'd literally stay at the Beverly Center all day. And they had great stores at the time. And then I went to the Beverly Center the other day. And man, it was fucking sad. Like, it's pretty empty. I mean, they do have a nice Bloomingdale's. They got rid of the Macy's men's store, which I dropped a lot of dollar on. Um, that was in my Buffalo. What was that? Not Buffalo Exchange, but Buffalo something era. The Plaid. Um, and then so that's gone. I mean, that's where Lucky Strike is going to be. And there used to be like a Hard Rock Cafe, and then next door to that were two nightclubs. I mean, it was, if you wanted to get laid, you went to the Beverly Center, and no matter what age you were, there was something for everyone. Now it's just like, a generic Macy's, a generic Bloomingdale's, like True. I think they have like a Diesel store, and nobody wears Diesel anymore. True Religion, same thing. Who the hell wears that? I mean, they have a decent Foot Locker there, but you know, they had a great food court. There's nothing basically on the top floor where Starkey's was in the food court. There's no food. I think there's like a huge H&M, but who the fuck shops there? So it'll be interesting to see what else they put in there. You gotta put a nightclub in there so the kids want to go there again. That's the thing. Kids drive a mall's business. Um, Century City, they have a great food court. Um, a Shake Shack and stuff like that, and then that's right by the movie theater. Um, so it's interesting because it's crazy, but I could see the Beverly Center going the way of the West Side Pavilion, which is now, it's not Google's home office, but it's now owned and operated by Google. Now, if you don't know what the West Side Pavilion was, that was the video, that was the mall in the Tom Petty video, Free Fallin'. So which mall was that? I mean, I know was the Galleria, which many movies were filmed. I think Schwarzenegger, Commando, all the mall scenes were done at that. I think Valley Girl, most of that was filmed at the Sherman Oaks Galleria. I mean, that used to be a real poppin' mall. Like, even kids from the West Side would go there. But now it's a shell of itself. I mean, I don't, they kind of turned it into an outdoor mall, but, I don't know if the movie theater's still there. Of course, I used to go to the 24-hour fitness there because they had a co-ed sauna. It's called the Puente Hills Mall. Okay. I mean, I'm not really in Puente Hills. I mean, there's still some fat malls in it. Well, not necessarily LA, but like, I think it's probably the largest mall out in this area. Southern California is the what's it called? South Coast Plaza, which is in the 714. It's fucking huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many girls in bikinis were in that late night sauna. I got a few numbers out of there. And then, of course, the Mall of America, and then there's the West Edmonton Mall, which is, those are, I mean, I went, when I did Rob Schneider, I did the comedy club in the West Edmonton Mall, the comic strip, and, that mall is gigantic. Like, you literally there's no way you could walk it in one day. I mean, I think it's at the time, this is about 2011, 2012. It's where the Edmonton Oilers would practice. They had a roller coaster, and then I guess there's like a Bloods and Crips type feud with the Mall of America because one of them says they're the biggest mall because they have the most stores, and then I think the Edmonton Mall is like, yeah, but we have the more square footage. So it's kind of funny to see them argue. Yeah, it's owned by the same people who own the club in Edmonton. I think at the Mall of America, it's called House of Comedy, but it's the same owner has the comic strip in Edmonton. They also have a club in, I believe, Vancouver, Plano, Texas, and Scottsdale, Arizona, where I did the Shane Doan roast. Oh, did they have a pasta mania? I'd never been to the Mall of America. Only been to the West Edmonton Mall, which is where I got my famous striped beanie. The only known beanie that fits my head. So it's a Burton beanie. Um I don't know many people in Scottsdale. I mean, I would probably get a vacation spot like my neighbor down the hall. He has a place in Palm Desert, and I've always loved Palm Springs, Palm Desert. It's great because I don't know anyone there, so I don't have to talk comedy or anything. Like the last time I was there, I won't say with who, but we did an Airbnb and it was awesome. You know, it was really hot. I mean, poor Annie, who was the rescue dog. Uh, I had she couldn't walk on the ground. It was so hot, so she just lounged in the grass. But I had a gig at a dispensary in Palm Desert, so I was like, "Well, let's just make a weekend of it." And so we rented a really nice house for 2 days, and a saltwater pool and all that stuff. Uh, what up, Steve? The resident hockey fan. I bet there is Colt. Hey, Earl, would you try and be there when Ovi passes Wayne for most goals of all time? Well, I think they are playing the Kings right around the time he could pass it. I mean, he's definitely going to pass it. I mean, he's really pumping up the totals. Hat trick last night. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's one of those things, though. Like, you'd really have to buy the ticket the day of. Like, okay, he's at 2 goals away. It's kind of like I was offered I think it was game 6 tickets when the Kings won the Stanley Cup. It was like $2,500, which would have been totally worth it. And they ended up winning the Stanley Cup that night. That would have been fucking awesome. But yeah, I'd love to. I was there when Gretzky. The Kings were playing Vancouver at home, and McSorley passed it over to Gretzky. I was there, so that's probably the coolest. Well, I was as a kid at the Miracle on Manchester game, but I was too young to really appreciate that. But I was at the goal scoring record when Gretzky got it against Vancouver. I believe he scored against Kirk McLean. So yeah, I mean I think a lot of people are rooting for Ovi. I mean, it's pretty amazing one of Gretzky's records will finally be broken. I mean, his some of his records are like his assist record will never be broken. It's not even close. And probably his point total. Like I can't see anyone getting the all-time points record. I mean, it's possible. I mean, McDavid, I guess maybe. I mean, but some of Gretzky's the 92 goals in one. I mean, that's no way is anyone getting close to 100 goals in this league. Well, not only did it make hockey in California, but it also made hockey in non-traditional markets. I mean, there'd be no hockey teams in the state of Florida if Gretzky doesn't come to LA and make hockey successful. There'd be probably no hockey in Columbus or Nashville. I mean, in non-traditional hockey markets, there'd probably be no hockey. Well, there's no hockey in Arizona now. There'd probably be no hockey in Utah. Um, I mean, I do kind of wish Quebec City would get a team because there's a fully ready arena there. So yeah, but I don't think Mike Modano. He helped maybe make American hockey popular, but he had no really impact on the NHL. Going, let's put a team in this city. I mean, Gretzky. If you really think about it, Gretzky probably himself is individually responsible for having the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, the Nashville Predators, Columbus Blue Jackets, absolutely the Anaheim Ducks, and probably the Utah Hockey Club, which, say Arizona. So 5 or 6 teams are in this league because of Gretzky, because he made it popular in California. And, I was there. Like, King games in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you know, they had good teams. I mean, if you look at some of those early 80s teams on the Kings, you had the Triple Crown line, which might be the greatest line in hockey history. People are, dude, come on, it's Los Angeles, but like it doesn't matter. If you put the Triple Crown line in Toronto, it's talked about as the greatest line ever. And that was Dave Taylor at left wing, great corner guy, and Marcel Dion, one of the great centers of all time, and then a great garbage, maybe the greatest garbage goal guy ever, Charlie Simmer. Um, and then you had, some great players passing through: Butch Goring, Larry Murphy, um, tons of great players. But the King games weren't really on TV. They rarely sold out because the game wasn't promoted very well in Los Angeles. The Showtime Lakers, really starting to rise. I think they won their first title in '80. It's when Magic Johnson played center in Philadelphia because Kareem was hurt, and then the '80s were the Showtime Lakers. So, but when Gretzky came here, the Kings were the hottest ticket in town for like probably 5 years. I mean, you would have a game, say a Tuesday night game against the Hartford Whalers, which before Gretzky got there, you'd be lucky if there were 7,500 to 9,000 people in that building. It was standing room only. When Gretzky got in, they were winning, and like the bar was raised in terms of, hey, the Kings standard now isn't just maybe trying to make the playoffs; it's to win the fucking cup. Or to get to the second and third round, whereas before it might have been, well, let's just get in the first round, and that's good enough. We got the Lakers making us money, it's just a bonus, whatever the Kings do. But I don't think, sadly, well, my favorite Mike Modano story is when they drafted the Minnesota North Stars, drafted Mike Modano in the first round. They then drafted legendary NHL enforcer Link Gates the missing link, who I was lucky enough to share a phone call with. And Lou Nanny, the general manager of the North Stars at the time, said, "We drafted Mike Modano in the first round to save the franchise. We drafted Link Gates in the second round to save Mike Modano. And in the third round, we drafted a lawyer to protect Link Gates." Hello. Um, and then Link Gates literally ended up playing on now NHL teams included, plus minor league teams, like literally 35 teams in his career. And some were like really fucking bizarre teams like Palm Beach, Mexico City. Um, and then I don't know where he is now. But I don't think Quebec City will ever get a team because the NHL looks at it and goes, the TV ratings would not be good. And I get that, you want ratings, but man, I would love to see Montreal and Quebec have a rivalry again. I remember Gretzky himself made. Yeah, I mean that was one of the big. I don't want to say holdups, but one of the big um, conditions of the trade was they wanted Marty McSorley. And I'm sure they tried to get Dave Semenko to come down, but that was a huge condition of the trade, along with Krushelnyski. I mean, the Kings gave up a lot. I mean, as they should have. They gave up Jimmy Carson, Martin Jelena, $15 million in cash, and 3 number 1 picks. So basically, Carson and Jelena were number 1 picks as well. So they gave up 5 number 1 picks basically. Sarah Tiana is the best. Um, I don't see her a lot, but we were on the same lineup the other night at the Comedy Store. She went early and I closed it out so we didn't see each other. She's got a kid, so like she can't hang out at the fucking Comedy Store all night. We don't talk as much as we used to, but welcome to comedy. Oh, I know. Well, actually, Cam Neely was Seabass. Yes, I love Sarah. We even though we roast battled on television, I love her a lot. Um, so yeah, there you go. So yes, Cam Neely. Excuse me, Seabass said we could put these on his tab. Yeah, Cam Neely. Now I think he's a co-GM, or is he president of the Boston Bruins, or GM? I think he handles a lot of the negotiations. That must be pretty funny to watch. I mean, I don't know a ton about Harold Ballard. I mean, I know he was pretty cheap. Um, I know he didn't like the Russians playing the Toronto arena. So something along the lines of he cut the water off to their locker room so they couldn't shower and stuff, stuff like that. I mean, he was basically the Jerry Jones of hockey. Like he was a real cantankerous. I did defeat K. Trevor Wilson. I did. Um, One of the greats. That's probably the victory I'm proudest of the most. A lot of people think the victory I'm proudest of the most is Jimmy Carr, because Jimmy's like a huge comic. But to beat K. Trevor Wilson in Canada, like you would think I would have gotten all 3 seasons just on that win. I mean, he beat Sarah in the untelevised season, and he beat Hinchcliffe. I mean, he's a fucking savage. So, and he's a great guy. He's like super nice. So hit the like button. Ballard was racist and misogynistic. Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising given his era. I mean, he was kind of from my dad's era, which, it was just a different um, vibe back then. Yeah, I think he's like the roast battle commissioner or something up there now. But that was a tough battle because I had to battle K. Trevor Wilson 10 minutes after I lost to Sarah Tiana. So I was like, I had no time to really prepare, and um, I was kind of bummed out I lost. So I don't even think usually I would go out there in my underwear, my shirt off. I just literally grabbed someone else's black T-shirt and just, I think I got lucky with the first joke I told about him, and then, he couldn't really recover, but, um, you know, but he's an awesome guy. So, you know, I'm very happy for his success. Um, so the Maritimes. So is that when you say Maritimes, you mean like Nova Scotia? Isn't that where the great minor league enforcer Dennis the Menace Bonvie hails from? Um, so, and I think roast battle's still pretty big in Canada, from what I understand. But there's so many knockoff shows. I mean, roast battle in LA is still fairly popular. I mean, I don't know who the fuck does it, but and I feel bad for the audiences that grow up thinking this current group of roasters are the bee's knees, because they ain't. Oh, okay. I think Bonvie. I know he's a scout for some NHL team, but I remember when I traded him, I had his first NHL jersey where he scored a goal. I think it was a Boston Bruins jersey. And then I also had his Colorado Avalanche jersey that he wanted. And we did a trade. He actually called me. And we talked for about an hour. And I think I recall having to send it to Nova Scotia, somewhere deep. I'm not sure where he lives now, but he was a nice dude. Haven't talked to him since. So, Dennis Bonvie, if you're out there listening, give me a call, man. We'll do a podcast. I had Chris Nyland on Inappropriate Earl last week. He was awesome to talk to. Great memory. Super nice guy. Sent me a T-shirt and this puck. Never back down. Never stay down. And an amazing memory for someone, I'm asking him about fights that were essentially 40 years ago. So, um, he has a great podcast himself. I mean, he interviews, if you're a big hockey guy, uh, he interviews guys from his era, Larry Playfair, Craig Cox, so it's really fascinating. Ken Lensman. I do know of Jay. I think we might have talked once on Twitter or Instagram and through DMs. I never saw the second Goon movie. I think I saw the first one, and I didn't really like it. I mean, I know it's kind of a true story about Doug Smith, but it was really just like a little too cartoonish for me. I mean, that's the great thing about Slapshot is that was really how hockey was back in the day, in terms of Slapshot. That was pretty much a realistic look at how hockey was played. So I thought that Goon was a little too cartoony for me. Um, but anything with Schreiber in it, I'm down. And I like Sean William Scott. Um, so yeah, I never saw the second one. Um, but I also never saw. I think there was a sequel with one of the Baldwin, with Stephen Baldwin, Slapshot 2, and I'm like, oh, I think the Hansons were in that, but I never saw it. Like, I'm good on that. I mean, some sequels are good. Rocky 2, I think, is just as good as Rocky 1, but I can't imagine Slapshot 2 with Stephen Baldwin was anything to write home about. I'm not really a huge basketball guy. Baseball, I used to be a huge Cincinnati Reds fan in the 70s and 80s. because my father was friends with the owner, Happy Williams. He was the owner before Marge shot. So I was really, and obviously a huge Dave Parker fan, still am. Get that motherfucker in the Hall of Fame before he dies. Um, and then I was an Angel fan for a long time, and I'm talking the Troy Percival era, even before him, Bobby Grich, Doug DeCinces, who was it? Chili Davis, Mo Vaughn, But the Angels have been so bad, and you just see like how on earth did they not win a title with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout in their primes? Uh, but um, it's just so hard to be an Angel fan that they kind of discouraged me from you know kind of caring about baseball anymore. Yeah, the coach Kim Coates is the coach. He's been on the Inappropriate Earl podcast. Yeah, I mean, no offense to Billy Wagner, but how is Billy Wagner on the ballot and Dave Parker isn't? I mean, Dave Parker's not even on the fucking ballot, man. And he was the best player in the game for like arguably 4 to 5 years. From like 78 to like 82. There's no one better. He could throw, he could hit, could steal bases, best arm in baseball, maybe the best arm in baseball history. That's arguable, but it's like he's at worst top three. And the fact that he did it all on bad knees, he had fucked up knees from high school and he had surgeries. And, back then, if you had surgery on your knees in the early 70s, good luck. And then, most people think Dave Parker's been kind of blackballed from the Hall of Fame because of the cocaine trials of the late 70s, early 80s for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But if you're going to kick out guys from the Hall of Fame or not even consider them to be in the Hall of Fame because of drug use, then you're going to have to kick out a lot of fucking people. You got Ty Cobb was a racist. Gaylord Perry cheated in every fucking game he pitched. He admitted it. Don Sutton, same thing. And it just bothers me that Parker's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Ted Simmons is in the Hall of Fame and Dave Parker's not. Like, if you're starting a franchise and you could transfer every player back in time to their prime, who you want on your team first, Dave Parker or Ted Simmons? Nothing against Ted Simmons, but Scott Rowland? Shit. But, Parker definitely burned some bridges somewhere along the lines. So, and I believe I hosted a clip on my Instagram of Sarah Tiana talking about Dave Parker in the Hall of Fame. So check that out if you can. Pretty please. Yeah, Kim Coates is great. I mean, he did when me and Chad Zumach did we kind of had like a podcast. It was a simulcast of both of our podcasts, and our friend who worked at a movie studio got us Kim Coates, and he did our podcast during the pandemic for like 2 hours, talked about everything, and super nice. I mean, he talked to us like we knew him. And he's good in anything. I mean, he had a nice bump in his career with the role of Tig Traeger in the Sons of Anarchy. I think he was in select episodes of the spinoff of Sons of Anarchy, The Mayans. So it was good to see. He's like the definition of a working actor. I mean, he is. Yeah, I mean, he's got a great look, the steel eyes, and kind of the wild hair and his nose. I mean, like he's like a ugly, good-looking guy, like, if that makes any sense. Um, and really funny too, like in Sons of Anarchy, he was, kind of the comedy relief of the show. So and he's good in everything, like, he's literally like the poor man's Gene Hackman, and I mean that as a compliment to him. Um, and he'll always get gigs. I mean, he's got a great look still. I mean, the older he's gotten, the better his look has become. So, Dick Fitzwell, 100%. I mean, the Rucker Hauer and the Hitcher was a little over the top for me. It's like, I know it's a movie, but like what I love about movies is when they're really believable, and it's just like, okay, man, where are the rest of the cops in this town? But I love the remake with Sean Bean was a little rough, to be honest with you. I think Steve Hahn was like the C. Thomas Howell part, but yeah, I mean Rutger Hauer, starts his American movie career with, of course, Nighthawks with Stallone, and then was it Blade Runner, and so many good roles, and Blind Fury with the great Randall Tex Cobb. And then he just kind of trailed off, and then he got a little bit of traction in the Batman movie. Um, and unfortunately passed away. I read his biography, kind of took acting very seriously, and he definitely was a great villain and had some comedy chops. I mean, Blind Fury was pretty funny. Um, so um, he's on the level of Thomas Hayden Church, even. I mean, Kim Coates, yeah, I mean I would say he's probably a little more known than Thomas Hayden Church, but Thomas Hayden Church has that great face too, where it's kind of a steely, grizzled, like a Marlboro Man type. Um, I mean, there were some great actors out of the '80s. John Glover. Um, oh, that's one of my favorite. That's a movie that 1987, Wanted Dead or Alive. I don't know why it didn't do better. Great cast. You've got Robert Guillaume. Who's the guy from Texas who's always Jerry Harden? He was in X-Files. He was like the go-to Southern bad guy character actor. Of course, Gene Simmons as Malik Al-Rahim. William Russ for you Miami Vice fans. And it just didn't do very well. I don't know why. Kind of loosely based off the Steve McQueen. I think they never really addressed it in the in Wanted Dead or Alive. It was kind of a loose sequel to the Steve McQueen bounty hunter movie. Um, but that movie, which only came out a year after 52 Pickups, so it's kind of a similar era. It just didn't do very well. I'm gonna look up while I can. We'll end the stream on a little um Wanted Dead or Alive. Let's see here. Randall was his name. Actually, it was 1986, so it did come out the same year as 52 Pickup. So let's see. I mean, here's the cast: Rutger Hauer, Gene Simmons, Robert Guillaume, Mel Harris as Terry, the girl who got blown up in the boat with William Russ, Jerry Harden, who's you would recognize, you might not know the name, and then um, let's see. Well, I mean, Wanted Dead or Alive was a 1958 television series starring Steve McQueen. So they never really addressed if it was like not a sequel, but like um, kind of related in some way. Directed by Gary Sherman. I don't know. It just didn't really pop. But I do. That is one of my. See, it had a budget of 4.5 million. It made 7.5. So I guess you'd say it was profitable. New World Pictures. Let me see anything else interesting here. So, that is one of my favorite. If you never saw Wanted Dead or Alive, I'm pretty sure this isn't a spoiler alert, but Rutger Hauer was paid to bring in Gene Simmons, and he was going to be given a bonus if he brought him in alive. So at the end of the movie, he sticks a hand grenade in Gene Simmons' mouth, looks at him, and goes, "Fuck the bonus," and pulls the pin. That's how I feel some nights at the end of comedy. Sam Elliott, another great actor from that ever. B.J. McKay and his best friend Bear. I'm off to Dallas. Who's providing my palace? New dreams and women too. A B.J. McKay, and this is best friend Bear. Wah, wah. Shout out to Greg Evigan. Shout out to Kip Smith. Just chilling. We'll go another 5 minutes. I like to give the 6 people in here their money's worth. Let me see. The fan funding. Thank you to Colt C for becoming a Bonzo Berry member. Appreciate the love. I don't get a lot of memberships, but William Russ was great and wise guy. Yeah, I mean, William Russ, he was also in Animal Kingdom. I think the last season of Animal Kingdom he popped up, and I'm like, he had long hair. I'm like, man, I know this guy from somewhere. I'm like, oh fuck, that's the guy from Wanted Dead or Alive. I mean, William Russ was literally the definition of a character actor. Like, he's someone who you might not recognize, but he's probably been in 100+ films. Yes, Colt, thank you for all the people who've joined. And I hope that I provide value and entertainment for you guys. I know when Doom was in here early, we talked a little bit of Dabbleverse, but not too much. So I do appreciate you guys tolerating my love of pro wrestling, hockey, and obscure 80s action movies. But yeah, if you haven't seen Wanted Dead or Alive, check it out. I'm assuming it's on something like Tubi or something. Or it might be on YouTube. Yeah, Audrey Landers. I mean, I do find it weird that Judy Landers was on like the first like 9-10 episodes of Vegas, the TV show, and then she just disappeared. There was like no explanation. But I think that was when Aaron Spelling was kind of taking over the reins from Michael Mann. Like, I just can't see Michael Mann and Aaron Spelling working well together. So I think Michael Mann created Vegas. I think he directed the pilot, and then it looked like he had kind of Aaron Spelling forced on him. So he just went on to do other things. I mean, Miami Vice pretty soon after Vegas, a couple years, maybe not pretty soon, but so it all worked out. I think Michael Mann's vision of Vegas was a seedier, darker, like Vegas is a real shithole, and Dan Tana would have been like, it wouldn't have been like so poppy and glossy. But that's what Aaron Spelling was known for. So, there's no really wonder why they probably didn't get along that well. I mean, I don't think either guy ever really talked about it, but I do seem to recall somewhere I read somewhere that Michael Mann's vision for the show was not what Aaron Spelling's was. But it was hard to argue with Aaron Spelling's success. Well, I mean, I think Dick York had got sick or something. So, and thank you, Kip Smith, for all the plugs. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I mean, that's happened before. I mean, really, it happened in Miami Vice. When Gregory Sierra was basically Lieutenant Castillo, and he didn't want to live in Miami for whatever reason full time, so they had him killed. And then, they brought in Edward James Olmos. So I can't imagine that. I don't know if Gregory Sierra regrets that decision. Some people don't give a shit. Who was the guy, Rory Corcoran or Cochran? He left CSI Miami, like at the height of its fame. He wanted to do like theater and shit. I don't know if he regrets that or not. John Deal from Miami Vice same thing, wanted to do like theater and independent films. Like he literally left Miami Vice at the height of its success, midway through season 3. Um, I watched the first episode of that Don Johnson show. I just couldn't. Like, I love Don Johnson. And I like Joshua Jackson. I just can't. It's like a shittier version of the Love Boat. And they totally dropped the ball. They should have had Philip Michael Thomas play like a Ted Lang type bartender. Just bring it back full circle, baby. So yeah, it's often weird when they. I mean, well, what they do? Didn't they do it with Lionel on the Jeffersons? No, or was it not Lionel, but maybe the mother? They did something on the Jeffersons where uh, they switched out one of the main characters. Maybe it was Lionel. I'm not remembering. We need William Zoom in here for this shit. He already would have typed the answer out. Maybe it was Lionel's girlfriend. And they did the same thing in the Rocky movies. Apollo Creed's wife in the first film is different than the wife in the second one. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine the girl from the first film going, yeah, I don't want to be in the next Rocky movie. But, she might have passed, maybe. I mean, really the only forgivable, recasting or whatever was when Bruce Lee died. I think it was like a couple minutes into a Game of Death, and I'm still fascinated every time I watch that movie when how they basically finished the movie 6 years later with cardboard cutouts of Bruce Lee's face, stunt actors, and even with Kareem, he didn't want to come back and finish the movie, so they had just another tall black dude, uh, kind of mimic Kareem's parts. But thank God the fight scene with Kareem and Bruce Lee was filmed with Bruce Lee and Kareem. So, that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to work out now. Probably stream tomorrow night. Fuck it. And thank you, Colt C, for the membership. Appreciate that. Thank you guys, Steve and Kip and Dick Fitzwell and Zoom, not Zoom, Chili Boots, all you kids. We were a small but mighty bunch in here tonight, but fuck it. That's the way I like it. Earl Skakel over and out.